Guys, welcome back to another vlog. So in today's vlog, I'm going to be taking you through a few different things. I'm going to take you through 3 of my main meals, so breakfast, lunch and dinner. Again, I'm still in my gaining phase, so these meals are going to be a little bit more calorie dense. But in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be going into my dieting phase, so you'll get an idea of what it takes in terms of changing your calories to stay on track when you're trying to be in a dieting phase. My meals aren't going to look totally different, but they will be adjusted so that it fits into my calorie target, and I'll explain that a little bit more in detail. The most important thing when you're dieting is going to be to stay within your calories, but make sure that you're eating foods that are filling you as well, so that you can sustain it over the long run. So I'll show you how that works when I start dieting, and I'll explain how I'm going to set up my diet when I do it. So that'll take you nicely in the summer if you want to follow along. I have something in the works as well that will actually help you if you want to follow along and to track your progress, and also to maybe document your progress along the way. So just keep an ear out in the next couple of weeks, because I'll be announcing something pretty exciting. The other couple of things I'm going to go through today as well is setting up your own diet, whether your goal is to be gaining weight or losing weight, how to set up your calorie targets and how to set up your protein and so on. So I'm going to talk you through that a little bit later in the vlog. And as well as that, I'm going to have a talk about gaining or cutting. So guys, breakfast is served. Overnight oats. I would say if there was one meal that I would recommend to someone to add into their diet, it would be this one, just because it's so convenient and it's so easy to make it. Obviously you make it the night before, so it's just done. You don't have to do anything when you get up in the morning. Either have it straight away, or it's very good one to carry on the go. So the great thing about this is you can add anything to it. You can add different flavors to it. So for instance, if you've got a nice protein powder, you don't have to add protein powder to it, but if you've got a nice protein powder, you could keep changing the flavors of this. So let's just say you had a strawberry protein powder, you had a banana one, you had a salted caramel one, whatever you had, you can just keep changing the flavors, so it actually just keeps it interesting. And again, you can add any fruit you want to it, chopped banana, grapes, blueberries, whatever you like. You can add strawberries. So yeah, it's just a very convenient one. It's so easy to make. Again, you don't need protein powder. I recommend it because it's just handy to get a lot of protein in your first meal, or whatever meal you're having it in. But you could also just add like Greek yogurt. So you see there, I added some Skyr. It's like a passion fruit one, I think. So you can get loads of different flavors of Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is very high in protein. So if you wanted just to add a bit of protein to that, you could just get a pot of yogurt and you could just start adding into that, and it will also kind of just thicken it up a small bit for you. So yeah, so that's basically it. It's a very easy one to make. Obviously you have to get the ratios right so that the oats soak up all the milk. If you put too much milk in or too much yogurt, it becomes a little bit watery. So you've got to make sure you get the portions right. But it's so easy. A really good one in the summer as well, if you don't want anything hot in the morning. If you don't want hot porridge, it's too warm. We often don't have that problem too often here, but when I was in Australia, it was just a great one because it was so hot in the morning. You get up and you have that, and it's nice and cold. So yeah, so that's my breakfast. So I'll put the macros up here now, and I'll show you the next meal after. Okay guys, so I'm just going to give you a breakdown of my plan, and also an idea of how you would actually set up your own plan if you were trying to either, again, if your goals are to gain weight or lose weight or whatever you want in between. It's just good to know how to actually calculate the stuff and how to get an idea. So the first thing we gotta do is find out how many calories we need to sustain our weight per day on average. Okay, so that's our maintenance calories. So this is basically how many calories are you burning each day. First of all, to keep yourself alive. So our body is going to be burning so many calories each day just to keep us alive. We call that our basal metabolic rate. This is basically just the amount of calories we need to keep all our vital organs function. Okay, so everything outside that then is extra calories burned, so like your daily steps, your activity levels, your workouts and all the rest of that, so that's going to be included as well. So this all adds up to make up our maintenance calories. So my maintenance calories are roughly around 2,700, 2,800 calories. It's important to know that this is just an estimation. So like all we're trying to get here is a starting point. It doesn't really matter what the number says. It's going to be in and around similar numbers for people of similar heights and similar activity levels. Okay, so once we have that number, we can at least then start to adjust depending on how we're actually progressing. So if you actually look up on internet, just look up Harris and Benedict calculator. That's the one I always use. It's pretty reliable, but any like online calorie calculator will work perfectly fine. Again, all you're looking for here is a starting point. once you have the starting point, we can start to adjust. So when we have our maintenance calories, again, by definition, maintenance calories means your weight is not going to be changing on average over time. So we're expending the exact amount of energy that we're taking in, okay, if that makes sense. Your maintenance calories basically is how many calories you need to eat per day just to stay exactly where you are. So calories in versus calories out is going to be the exact same. So obviously if we want to gain weight or lose weight, we're going to have to adjust this. So to gain weight, what I'm on at the moment is about 29 to 3,000 calories, or 2,900 to 3,000 calories. That's roughly what I'm at, because this allows me to go into a calorie surplus. So that when I'm trying to gain muscle and I'm doing a lot of work in the gym, that my weight is increasing incrementally, meaning that it gives me the best chance to put on the most amount of muscle that I can. Okay, so what I basically do here is I aim for a gain of 1 to 2% of my body weight per month. Okay, so you can break that down any way you want, but roughly if you found out like 1% of my body weight, for example, my body weight at the moment is about 80 kgs. So 1% of 80 kgs is 0.8 of a kg. So I'd be aiming for roughly 0.8 of a kg to 1.6 of a kg per month of gain. Again, that's averages, so I wouldn't get too caught up in the day-to-day readings, but on average over time, you want to be looking to aim for roughly around that. That's a good kind of indicator. Anywhere between that is a nice rate of gain. So that's why roughly I'm at this amount of calories. Because my activity levels have dropped recently, because my football is done, so obviously we can't train with the COVID. My steps are down as well because I'm working from my desk for most of the day now as well, so my steps are down as well. So my only real calorie expenditure per day increases are coming from my gym sessions. So I'm working out about 7 days a week now at this stage, 6 days a week, but about 7 sessions a week. So my calorie expenditure from that isn't going to be crazy high. So basically I would have been on more calories if I had more steps, if I was working a labor intensive job, if I had other cardio forms in like football, or even just going for runs and stuff like that, my calorie expenditure would be higher. But if my calorie expenditure would be higher, that means my maintenance calories would be higher. That means I'd have to increase this as well in order to keep up with this rate. So it doesn't really matter about this number again, okay? This could be very individual for everyone. What you need to concentrate on is picking the amount of calories that is getting you to this target. 1 to 2% of body weight increase a month. Again, that's if you're gaining now, so it's obviously totally different if you're trying to just maintain or if you're trying to lose weight. I will be going on a cut in about 3 or 4 weeks, and I will go through this in more detail later. But when I'm going on a cut, I'm probably going to start my calories around 21 to 2200. So now you can start to see the picture here. Okay, my maintenance calories are around 27 to 2800, meaning that that's how many calories I burn every day, roughly. So in order for me to lose body fat, I need to make sure that my calorie expenditure is higher than my calorie intake. So in order to do that, I have to drop my calories on average down roughly to about 21 to 2200. This will give me roughly a loss of 0.5 to 1% of my body weight a week. Okay, so you got to look at that again. With the rate of loss, the reason that this matters is because what we don't want to do is lose too much muscle. So when you're losing body fat, your body can also use the muscle tissue you have as well. So we want to make sure that most of the loss is coming predominantly from body fat, okay? In order to do that, we make sure that the rate of loss is moderate, but also we want to make sure the rate of loss is sustainable. So if you're basically losing really, really quickly, it's just going to become very hard because you're always going to be hungry and you've got a bigger chance of like binging out and falling off track. So you've got to think of like a diet as obviously a long-term process. You can't just expect to get there overnight. So you have to make sure that it's moderate and it's sustainable, that you can keep the calorie deficit going for the duration of the diet, which in my case will probably be roughly 8 to 10 weeks. So roughly that should give me a good loss. So we'd say 1% of my body weight a week would be 0.8 of a kg, which would probably be quite high. So I'd be aiming for probably closer to 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. So that would take me maybe roughly about 0.4, 0.5 of a kg a week, which would be in and around a pound a week, maybe a little bit more if I can go a small bit more aggressive, but anywhere in and around there should work quite well. So that's my basically these are going to be my targets going forward, and again you can calculate these yourself depending on what your calorie maintenance is, and then you can start working from there, and again using these kind of principles just to get you where you want to go. Last thing I'm going to talk about is going to be protein. So with the protein intake here, okay, what we're trying to do is first of all make sure that our protein intake is high enough so that we're not losing muscle mass when we're dieting, but we're making sure that we're maximizing muscle gain when we're in a gaining phase, so when we're building muscle. So protein intake is the only thing I really worry about, and you want to make sure that you're getting this right. So the general rule is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you're a 170 kg male, you should be aiming for roughly around 170 grams. Again, this is just kind of like anywhere in around there should work quite well, and you don't have to get too over the top with it. Some people like a higher protein intake, some people a little bit lower, but once you're in and around these numbers, I think you'll do quite well, especially if you're only kind of like a beginner intermediate. As you get to advanced stage, you may have to think about getting very specific about protein time and stuff, but for now, if you're getting this amount of grams per day, you should be doing quite well. Protein is very important for, like I said, sustaining your muscle or it's building it, but it's also very important for keeping you full when you're dieting. So when you're dieting, protein is one of the more filling macronutrients you can eat. So just when you're trying to keep hunger at bay, because hunger is always going to be your biggest enemy in a diet, if you can keep your protein intake high, it just means the diet becomes easier and more sustainable, and it just means that you've got more of a chance of sticking to it as you go through. So keeping your protein intake relatively high is always going to work quite well, and this is a nice little rule just to kind of go by. It works well as well because obviously the smaller you are, so if you're a female and you're only 140 kgs, it just means you're going to have less protein because you've got less muscle to sustain in your body. You've just got less of a body to feed, and obviously your ratio of calories is going to be less as well from the amount of protein. So hope this makes sense, guys, and that's just a basic overview of what my calories are at the moment and how you go about calculating them for yourself. Again, you need to use metrics such as weighing scales, how you're actually progressing in the mirror and stuff to make sure that you're adjusting these as you go. This gives you a starting point, but you've got to be smart and you've got to see how the other metrics are going. If your weight, for instance, if you think you're in a cutting phase, you're on 2200 calories like I am, and you think that should work, but your weight average over 3 or 4 weeks hasn't moved, then there's a good chance you're not hitting your calorie target properly. Either you're miscalculating your calories or you started too high to start with. So it's really important that you're getting these metrics because it's very easy to tell yourself you're in a calorie deficit. But if you're not losing body fat or your weight is not dropping, then you're not in a calorie deficit. You're in around calorie maintenance. So same thing if you're trying to gain weight. If you're hitting 29 to 3,000 calories and your weight isn't going up, and you're telling yourself, well, I'm in a calorie surplus, but if your weight isn't going up on average, then you're not in a calorie surplus. You have to be seeing the progress either on the scales, in your physique, or something has to be telling you that you are improving or you are increasing. If this isn't happening, you may have to readjust things. So that's today's lunch, guys. The great thing about this meal is it's so versatile in that you can make it at home very, very easy. You can carry it for lunch if it doesn't smell too much. And you can also adjust the calories in it so easily. So if you're gaining and you wanted to increase the calories in this meal, all you'd have to do is take out the lighter than light mayo and use like regular mayo for higher calories. Take out the low fat cheese and add in normal fat cheese. Instead of having the tuna in spring water, you could have like tuna in any kind of oil, so sunflower oil, olive oil, so they're obviously going to have more calories as well. So it's just a handy way to increase the calorie content of the meal without having to change too much, and vice versa when you're trying to cut. So the meal I'm having here is relatively low calories, so I'll put the macros up for this meal now. But it's a very, very handy one because the lighter than light mayo is a great swap for the normal mayo. You're saving so many calories per serving in that. So that's a nice handy one that you can add into the tuna mix with the sweet corn. You can also obviously go for the lower fat cheese, and then go for the tuna in spring water is just such a nice calorie saver. Tuna in spring water doesn't taste great in its own, but when you add seasoning to it and you add the lighter than light mayo and add in some cheese, add in some of the sweet corn, it just makes it really nice. So it's just a great meal to carry. Have the wrapped in as well, but again, if you wanted to lower the calories, you could probably go for like a smaller wrap. There's like kids mat wraps there that you can have as well. They're like 120 calories, but to be honest, like when you're cutting down the meal, I think a regular wrap there works quite well, and it's quite filling as well. So a nice handy meal to fit in throughout the day. So guys, I'm just after doing a video for Instagram there. I do, like, it's hard on Instagram because I have to explain everything within a minute, so kind of get my point across. But I just want to talk a small bit about separate phases of either gaining or cutting. A lot of people come to me and they always ask me, should they cut or should they gain first? And it's all very, very dependent. So like, I always probably recommend cutting first because most people are always a little bit self-conscious about their body fat levels and they never feel comfortable. So if you're self-conscious about your body fat levels and you decide to go into a gaining phase, it's just going to get worse and worse, and you're going to feel like after about a month you're just going to want to cut again because you're going to feel uncomfortable. So I always recommend that you get to a place first that you're comfortable with your body fat levels, and then you can start to gain from there. It just makes so much more sense. Now if you're a person who's fairly lean and you don't really care about the body fat too much, then I would say yeah, go for it, go for a gaining phase, and like that just gain for as long as you can, especially if you're new to training, because you advance a lot quicker when you're a beginner, so you may as well give your body the fuel to do it. But there is certain circumstances that you can actually gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time. So if you're new to training and you haven't had a training program, like a consistent training program in the past, then there's a good chance that for the first few months you'll actually get what they call newbie gains. So you'll put on a lot of muscle, and you can actually do this in a slight calorie deficit. So that means that you can actually lose some body fat while gaining muscle as well. So if you're a beginner or if you're like grossly overweight, because if you're grossly overweight, it just means you have more fat stores, which means that even in a calorie deficit, you still have an energy source, which is an energy reserve in your fat stores. So you still have the energy reserve to be used to build muscle as well as lose some body fat. So you can do both at the same time to a certain degree. Now, for most people, doing this isn't probably going to be optimal, in that if you're in a calorie deficit, like if you're relatively lean and you're relatively well trained, or you have been training at least consistently for a few months, if you decide that you want to gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time, you're just going to end up spinning your wheels. You might be able to do it to a certain degree, but it's going to be a lot slower than if you actually went into like a cutting phase first and maintained your muscle, and then went into a gaining phase for the long term and just try to minimize the amount of body fat you gain during that phase. So by doing this, by doing these cycles over and back a few times, that's how you're going to get your best body composition in the long run. If you're trying to gain muscle and lose body fat at the same time, you can do it to a certain degree, but if you think about it, your biggest weapon for losing fat is putting yourself into a calorie deficit. That's your biggest weapon. Your biggest weapon while trying to gain muscle is obviously the training, but also having the extra fuel and calories in the system to be able to put the training sessions in first, but also to fuel the gaining of the muscle, because the muscle has to come from somewhere. So you need the fuel to do that. So if you decide that you're going to stay at maintenance and try to do both at the same time, you're taking away your biggest weapons for both. So if you think about it, when you're gaining muscle, you need to be able to push yourself in the gym. But if you're in a calorie deficit, it's very hard to do that, because you just haven't got the energy coming in, and you're going to be just that much more fatigued, lethargic all the time as you're training. So if you're going to restrict your calories, you're just going to make the whole process so much harder. As well as that, when you are trying to recover from hard sessions when you're gaining muscle and you're trying to build a muscle, you need extra calories for that. And if you're not giving that to your body, you're just not going to optimize the approach. If you're following along with my journey, this all will start to make a lot more sense as we go through it. So as you know from previous vlogs, I have been gaining for the last year. So I put on about 10 kgs over the last year. It's not all been muscle, absolutely not. And in fact, the majority of it's probably been body fat. But there has also been a lot of muscle as well. And that is just a side effect of gaining optimally. You have to accept that you're going to put some body fat on as well, as I said in the last video. So what I'm going to be doing in the next few weeks is I'm going to be going into a diet phase. So this is going to last about 11 weeks, and I'm going to explain it in more detail in future videos. But basically the idea here is that I'm going to cut back all the body fat that I gained over the last year and trying to maintain all the muscle as well. So you can see that I can do this within 10-11 weeks easy if I do this properly. So that all the fat that I've accumulated over the last year will be gone, but I'll still keep onto the muscle that I built. So you can see now how this approach starts to work. Because fat loss is relatively quick compared to muscle growth, you have to commit to the muscle growth for that little bit longer, and then you can peel back the body fat and then repeat the process as many times you want to get into the body composition that you want to get to. So hope this video makes sense, and if you have any extra questions, put them into the comment section, I'll answer them. But basically that's my approach, and that's what's going to take me to the next level. So guys, that is dinner knocked out. Beef stroganoff, I think stroganoff. Very easy one to make, and it's a very easy one to kind of create a lower calorie version of. So if you're someone that wants to cook like in bulk for dinner for family, it's a very handy one to make. So you can make that. and it's actually one that reheats very well, so you could carry it the next day as well if you wanted to do it. So it's not the lowest calorie, but that's why I always add in a side of veg. So if you wanted to make any meal a bit more voluminous, if that's the word, always just add in a side of veg, no matter what you're doing, because especially if you're dieting, hunger is the biggest enemy. So making sure that you're getting the side of veg is just going to bulk up the meal, and it's just going to make you feel fuller. Especially the further you get into a diet, the more hungry you are, the more important that is, so you don't start to binge and overeat. So yeah, so that's a good meal there. So you can see easiest swaps just to make this meal a little bit more lower calorie. We're using the lightest light Philadelphia cheese instead of any kind of cream-based substance. We're using the leaner beef medallions. So like you can use any lean beef, but basically just a lower fat steak, and just chop that up. If you wanted to make it a little bit more low calorie, you could go for like cauliflower rice or something on the side. I didn't know, I just went for pasta, but you can maybe go for half and half, normal rice, cauliflower rice. You can do loads of things, you can add it to loads of things. So it's just a very versatile meal, very healthy one, and it is very, very nice. That's a wrap on another vlog. Hope you enjoyed it. It just gives you an idea now of how to set up your own nutrition. And also just an idea of what kind of foods I'm eating at the moment. I have 1 week left of my gaining phase. I've been gaining nearly a year now. It's the first time I've ever done this for a prolonged period of time, and I've really seen the benefits of doing it. And it's something I'm going to definitely promote a lot more in the future. But once this gaining phase is over, I'm going to be going into a diet. So that might appeal to a lot more of you, because I'm sure now coming up to summer, a lot of people will be thinking about bikini body and so on. So we're all going to be in the kind of the shredding mindset. So yeah, so look out for that in the future, and I will see you in the next vlog.